Walker out. Kansas, get Brownback out. In Michigan, get Snyder out. Vote for Shower. In Illinois, boy, if you don't want Illinois to become a right-to-work state on the model of what Walker, Snyder has succeeded, Kasich hasn't quite succeeded, but they'll try that in Illinois. So keep Quinn and not the other alternative. In Arkansas, Pryor, this guy Cotton, voted against the Pandemic Preparedness Act. Get him out. Hagan over Tillis in North Carolina. Tillis wrecking the economic model of North Carolina with his education cuts. In South Dakota, give Larry Pressler a try, right? He's a loose cannon. He's a wild card. Let's see what he can do. In Kentucky, this McConnell has outlived his usefulness. Grimes is better, and I would just say from a purely technical point of view, Grimes is a very disciplined, a model of a disciplined candidate. Whatever you think of the content, I'm critical of most of her content, but that iron will of discipline, that's a model for many a political campaigner. Scott Brown drives a truck. that was the hog castration of a couple of years ago. Well, he drives a truck. He's a delivery man for the policies of Wall Street, especially the State Street Bank. So you get the idea. Pretty much vote against the Koch candidates. That's generally the Republican, and try to avoid the worst. In the meantime, there are some places, right now, Nebraska and California 5, and then we're going to talk about New York State. You probably want to vote for Howie Hawkins, if only because he supports a certain version, at least, of the Wall Street sales tax and keep that alive. So those are the evil clowns of this Halloween season. Now, second point, the international questions. U.S. policy is obviously in disarray, right? There is this bifurcation, right? Supporting terrorism. If you're a terrorist in Iraq, well, this has now changed a little bit, but the point is the parts of the U.S. government support ISIS, parts of the U.S. alliance system, the Saudis, the Turks, support the ISIS people, but then there's also the need to bomb them for public relations reasons. It is, of course, time to deliver ultimata to Turkey, stop supporting ISIS, to Saudi Arabia, stop supporting ISIS, to the Israelis. We've just had the Israeli foreign minister writing in the New York Times that the ISIS is no threat at all to the Israelis, that Syria needs to be carved into pieces, and so forth, right? So there's a huge crisis in the U.S.-Israeli alliance, right? The guano reference, I guess we'd have to call it, from somebody in the State Department. And that goes together with a crisis in the U.S.-Turkish alliance, which found its way even onto the front page of the Washington Post. And we're told by that same Washington Post that the sociopaths of half the world are streaming into Syria. Fighters are still flocking to Syria. Strikes have not stemmed the flow. Overall numbers rise in a steady migration. That's Friday, October 31st, today, Halloween. Now, behind the scenes, the strains of all this are becoming quite obvious. The New York Times speculates that there may be a purge, and the starting point for this is the Hagel Memorandum. From Chuck Hagel, Secretary of Defense, to Susan Rice, the National Security Director, right? She's supposed to coordinate the government. She's a miserable failure. Essentially, the idea is that U.S. policy in Syria is unraveling U.S. policy in Syria because, gosh, if you try to attack ISIS, you're going to be helping Assad, and you don't want to do that. And we've got the think tank community here, some very ugly people. Anthony courtesan, a strangelove who came into the fore really 25 years ago in the first Gulf War, right? The Kuwait War. He says that this is a strategic mess. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you back terrorism and try to use it as a geopolitical tool. So the idea is that Hagel is still in office, and he's joining Gates, Panetta, Hillary, and Dempsey, really, in criticizing Obama's current policy. Boy, something has to be done there, but you see the problem. And the real problem, of course, is the New York Times is speculating that if there is a purge, right, Kerry is seen as untethered. He's off the reservation half the time. Hagel doesn't say anything, at least not in meetings. He only talks to Obama one-on-one. But you've got now these czars moving in. General Allen, remember him, the great friend of Jill Kelly down there in Tampa. And he was ousted as part of the Petraeus purge post-Benghazi. Allen coming back in? Is he going to come back all the way and take over Kerry's job or Hagel's job? And then, of course, we've got the Ebola czar, Klain. Notice also, Chief of Staff McDonough seems to be still around. And, of course, Susan Rice. So the idea is that the instability is becoming overwhelming, and you can see this also with the Turkey and Israeli alliance crises. Now, I would like to do justice to the Valdai speech by Vladimir Putin of Russia. That is something you're going to want to read in detail, and it's worth pondering because it does show you how somebody else sees this entire thing, and it's full of important insights. Let's just give some kind of a flavor. The United States declared itself the winner of the Cold War, saw no need to readjust the international system, but simply took steps that threw the system into sharp and deep imbalance, right? Bring back the balance. Pardon the analogy, but this is the way a nouveau riche behaves when suddenly given a great fortune, in this case, world leadership and world domination. Instead of managing their wealth wisely, they commit many follies. We'll see if we can say a little bit more about this in a minute on World Crisis Radio.
This winter, next to water and food, you need a safe, storable fuel supply for your preparedness needs. Spare fuel is the answer. Unlike gasoline, spare fuel can be safely stored with your other supplies for many years and works in any gas-powered vehicle or backup generator. With the bitterly cold temperatures predicted for this winter, now is the best time to stock up on spare fuel. So go to GetSpareFuel.com. That's GetSpareFuel.com. GetSpareFuel.com.
Hi, this is Larry Smith. Sometimes bad things happen to good people, like when the jeweler ruined my ring and wouldn't do anything about it. But when my Legal Shield attorney called him and told him what my rights were, I received a check for over $2,100. Worry less and live more with lsprotection.com. That's lsprotection.com, or call 855-340-SAVE. Again, 855-340-7283.
Results will vary from case to case.
At 30dayfoodsupply.com, you can now purchase a one-of-a-kind product not available anywhere else. A meatless burger dry mix in 4 delicious flavors. With our new Oregon Trail Foods vegan burgers, all you do is add water and fry. They need no refrigeration. They're packaged in Mylar bags with an oxygen absorber for a long shelf life. They're non-GMO. They're gluten, soy, nut, and chemical-free, but they're loaded with flavor. And a good source of carbs and protein, yet low in sodium. Flavors include Italian, spicy Mexican, Mexican, 6 vegetable, and black bean olive. Go to 30dayfoodsupply.com or call 541-229-0010 and order today. Eat them every day, take them camping, or save them for an emergency. Check them out at 30dayfoodsupply.com and click on the vegan burger icon. That's 30dayfoodsupply.com, where all of our products are produced in Oregon by Oregon Trail Foods. 30dayfoodsupply.com.
The experts at Web.com want to build your business a successful website for free, just like we did for these current Web.com customers.
We've used and looked at other website designers, but there's nobody better than Web.com.
Web.com can build your website in as little as 7 days free. Plus, we'll promote it on all the major search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing. If after 30 days you're happy, we'll continue to provide promotion, hosting, support, and maintenance, all for one low monthly fee. If not, cancel and pay nothing.
If you're in business today and you don't have a web presence, you won't be taken seriously.
Call right now and you'll also get a free .com or .net domain name for your new website, powered by VeriSign, the world's leading domain name provider.
Call 800-297-0154. That's 800-297-0154.
No upfront charge for site build, after which ongoing fees apply. Rights to site are relinquished when canceled. Domain included during active service, after which fees apply.
That's 800-297-0154.
You pick up the receiver with your heart racing and sweat dripping from your forehead. You finally muster the courage to dial the number to call into your favorite talk radio show. It rings once, twice, and then...
Hello, it's GCN. What's your name and the state you're calling from?
Surprised you got through, you squeak out.
Jason from Minnesota.
Please hold.
As you patiently wait for your turn, you begin to daydream about being a famous talk radio host and what it would be like to have your own show.
Jason from Minnesota, you're up.
Millions of loyal listeners worldwide waiting to call and talk to you.
Caller, are you there?
Cheering crowds surround you, calling out your name.
Jason! Going once, twice. Okay, we gotta move on to the next caller.
You blew it.
Huh? Wait, no!
Interact with the host you're listening to right now, online at GCNlive.com. Click on the community link. Engage with other listeners. Ask questions. Start debates. Don't agree with the host? Let them know. Be a part of the community at GCNlive.com. Independently leading the way for the nation. Compelling talk for every political persuasion. We are G.
Let us continue the election program. We're going to several of the key states in just a minute. But the Putin-Valdai speech. The U.S. has committed many follies, says Putin to this international gathering. The measures taken against those who refuse to submit are well known, tried and tested many times, including use of force, economic and propaganda pressure, meddling in domestic affairs, and appeals to a kind of super legal legitimacy to justify illegal intervention in this or that conflict or toppling of inconvenient regimes. Outright blackmail has been used against a number of leaders. I would also point to the tragic death of de la Margerie, the head of the French Total petroleum company, right? A great enemy of sanctions on Ukraine and a great advocate of European East-West EU to Russia economic integration. A universal diktat by the United States, imposing one's own models, produces the opposite result. Instead of settling conflicts, it leads to their escalation. Instead of sovereign and stable states, we see the growing spread of chaos instead of democracy. And the U.S. supports a very dubious public ranging from open neo-fascists, parenthesis Ukraine, to Islamic radicals, parenthesis ISIS. And how's the track record on that? First, there was the military operation in Iraq, then Libya. Libya pushed to the brink of falling apart. Why? Today, the country is in danger of breaking up and has become a training ground for terrorists. It's one of the main sources for ISIS. We have to point out, though, that Tunisia, as the Washington Post notes, is one of the biggest national delegations, if you will, inside of ISIS. Now, the economic sanctions specifically, and Putin on that. Sanctions are undermining the foundations of world trade, including the WTO rules and the inviolability of private property. They are dealing a